Apparently our mics are live. I'm being shushed already.
Yeah. I was waiting on some intro music.
I know,
I was
right?
like, yeah. I mean, what was it? I'm missing that. It threw off my flow.
I think
It's not time yet.
Should we start?
we got to count down.
I know, we got to count. I'm just
Explain
kidding.
this all to
I know.
you before.
I think
here's a boy-
Miss Giggles was waiting on my gaff.
How about a voice that no one recognizes? You see, that's the reason why you don't put 3 Army guys on the same table at the same time. Because unless there's music, they don't even know where to go.
They didn't know what to do.
Well, sir, I'm going to stop you right there. I am no Army guy.
Oh, that's right. There you go. 2 Army guys and 1 guy. One
Marine.
There you
Marine.
go. 1 Marine. There we go.
Hoorah.
All right. Hoorah. Unfortunately, we do know, unless it's written, you don't even know where to go to eat. No, but that's all right. And nobody knows who the heck this voice is, but go ahead.
This is going to be good. This is going to be good. All right, so
Oh, I'm sure people recognize that voice, sir.
Yeah, I was gonna
2
say,
minutes
that's
till
not
we're
right.
recording. Are we recording now?
This is
Yes.
part
Oh,
of it.
this is part of the
This
band.
is like
This
is
is-
3 minutes before your show.
Yes.
Okay,
This is
so
where you guys
our
just
show's getting
This
ready
is where John would normally make a fool out of himself and say,
John, feel
Justin,
free.
please,
Feel free.
please help save me.
Well, I want to thank Devin before we go live for bringing in the coffee. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
That was mighty kind of you thinking of us.
I've been tasked as the production assistant
Wow.
of Purple Heart Homes, so
That's amazing. That's a new
That's a
job
new
description
job
for you.
description.
That's awesome.
I
A new
gave that.
role. Next job.
Well, you know, I get a new title again next week. That's kind of how things work around here, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So,
So we've got a couple of extra folks in the studio with us today.
Oh,
John, Devin, you want to introduce our friends that are in the studio?
well, first of all, we have Lisa Allen and her husband Charles Allen, and then
What do they do?
Lisa
They're just
is
here
the
visiting.
executive of marketing for Purple Heart Homes, and she is fabulous. And more importantly, she's my boss. And
Well said. Well said.
and of course, we have Scott from Brandstar. He's going to be watching the show. And the reason they're all here is because Montel Williams,
Who's that?
Man,
our most prestigious
It
guest
is-
yet,
it is
in studio with
it's an
us.
incredible day.
Yeah. Oh,
that's
yeah.
incredible.
Yeah. It's, and then, of course, you got all the regular cast of characters, me and John and Brad. I guess if you care about those guys.
Thanks, Devin. Wow, that's harsh, wasn't it?
Under the bus.
I mean, I threw myself in that category. I just want to put that out there.
I'm just honoring my pledge to General Neller. I'm not going to talk bad about the Marines.
3, 2, 1. Mic's off. Here we go.
Purple Heart Homes presents Putting the Pieces Back Together, a forum for veterans and the community to connect. Here are your hosts, veterans John Gallina and Brad Borders.
Welcome to today's show of Putting the Pieces Back Together. I got to tell you, this is probably the most I've ever been excited for a show here.
Really?
Wow, that's saying
Wow,
something.
that is saying
over
something.
2 years of doing the show now.
You didn't say that when George was on here, when George Campbell was on here.
Well, I mean, it's George Campbell. I've known George
George is
forever. I mean,
exciting, but-
great
George
guy, love him to
works
death,
for the
but
city.
It's George.
We do have a pretty exciting
like George
show
of the
today.
Jungle. I mean, it's just like, who'd get excited about George?
That's right. He's got an excellent mustache, though.
He does.
Yeah,
He
he's got a
does.
little thing too. He's got like a deal here now. He looks sort of like a Three Musketeer,
What
except for
a
he's like
deal?
several Three Musketeers.
And you know, we get to see George every day, but our extra special guest, Admiral Williams, we very rarely get to see.
Well, thanks for the promotion.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. Yeah. Well, so for those listening, we're so thrilled to have Montel Williams from Military Makeover here, and not only Military Makeover, but you might have known him on a little talk show he had for quite some time, but he's also a Navy and Marine Corps veteran and a graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy, and we are honored to have you here, sir, and thank you for being with us today.
Thanks so much for having me. And, you know, I got to give out some props to the Brandstar folks because I not only do Military Makeover, but we do another show that's called Military Makeover Operation Career, where we feature companies that hire veterans across the country. Then I do another show for Brandstar, which is called The Balancing Act, where we talk about issues of the day and, you know, present products and things and you know, programs and places that people can go to find assistance, get more information about bettering their lives.
But you know, I got one small complaint, Brad.
What's that?
Oh, gosh.
And
Let's
you
hear it.
know, I'm so thrilled that Montel's here with us, and just thank you for taking the time to come be on the show.
Yes, sir.
But I got to say, ever since we turned over the scheduling to
Devin?
Devil Dog Devin.
It's been all Marines.
all Marines.
All Marines.
Ever
Like,
since the complaint
As
came
it
in.
should be.
every
That's
week
right.
has been
I'm
Marine
just
week.
saying.
I think he's trying to say that there's some really great professional Marines out there that are really running the world.
Yeah, it could be.
Absolutely. What I'm really saying is what our audience wants to hear is from the Marine Corps.
Is
There
that
you
what
go.
it is?
I know our audience.
That's what it is. Yeah, that's an echo
perplexes
chamber.
me because I don't recall any phone calls coming in from anybody except for what's the caller's name that calls in every week?
Hope calls in
Hope.
Yeah,
every
shout
week.
out to Hope.
Yeah.
Wait, I heard Hope kind of threw you under the bus, right?
Well, there was some moms of Marines that threw me under the bus
This
and
is
filed
true.
a complaint with the sheriff's department. General Neller made me apologize
This is
live
true.
on air, and
Wow.
I had to do
Commandant of the Marine Corps.
some push-ups and
You did.
pledge to never talk bad about the Marines licking windows or.
See, there he goes.
There he goes
Right.
again.
It was,
Wait, I didn't say nothing bad. I just stated
What you had to
what
apologize
I
for.
was apologizing for.
Gotcha.
It was a very backhanded apology.
I heard it. I heard
Very
it.
backhanded.
I heard it. I heard it
Yeah.
that way, but it's okay. You know,
Yeah.
we do know that we're the ones that clear the beach so you can get there.
Well,
Ah,
that's
that's
true.
right.
We appreciate
Well
it.
said,
So
sir.
speaking of service, tell us a little bit about what led you to join the service.
Well, you know, it's kind of crazy. I'm a little bit older than maybe most people think I am, but you know, it was way back in the early '70s where, you know, we were coming out of a conflict that this country was really torn apart about, something called Vietnam. And you know, I had some friends that went to school with me that had joined the Marine Corps. I had one particular friend who was a friend really of my brother's, but kind of, you know, stood over me from time to time. And you know, he had gone off and joined the Marine Corps and he came back after serving in Gitmo in Guanaco in Cuba. And it was really kind of crazy because he was literally shot on post in Cuba. People don't know this, but
Wow.
his, you know, mirror on the other side, he was literally holding his rifle in a way on his side that the mirror, which is the Cuban on the other side, thought it was an aggressive thing. So he fired off a round. Didn't hurt him. Well, it didn't hurt him, but it did injure him. It wounded him, hit him in the shoulder. And he came back home for some leave and vacation time and came back in that uniform. And I remember I was so impressed for a couple reasons. One, why he would join at a time when most people thought that the service was really, you know, like almost, you know, I don't know, the bottom of the barrel for Americans. You know, and people don't remember how quickly we forget that there was a time where people used to literally spit on the ground in front of us.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And, you know, he came back, and I tell you, his name was Mike Weitzel, and homeboy looked like, you know, $1 million in that uniform. And impressed me so much that I said, you know, I think I might do this. And he was like, well, let me teach you a couple things. And so even before I went to boot camp, I literally would stand in my bedroom in my house with my parents and literally stand 2 inches from the wall and focus in on the crack in the wall just so that I could make sure that while in boot camp, no matter who came up to me, I could keep paying attention to that crack in the wall. And, you know, he'd stand behind me and scream at me and yell at me and all that kind of stuff. And I couldn't figure out why he wanted to do that until I went to boot camp. And then I realized how much of an advantage he gave me because everybody else who jumped or twitched and freaked, you know, I never jumped and twitched and freaked. And so, you know, I went to the Marine Corps boot camp at Parris Island, you know, did you go to Parris Island?
Oh, absolutely.
There we go. So real Marines right in this room. That's what I heard. Not the Sand Flea Dodgers.
No Hollywood here.
No Hollywood here. But I did go to Marine Corps boot camp back in 1974. Graduated at a time before the congressional investigation that literally turned Parris Island upside down. And unfortunately, while I was there, that was, I don't know, this is for young people out there, they won't remember this, but there was a young Marine that about a month before I got there walked out and put his head on a railroad track, committed suicide.
Oh, man.
And there was another Marine who was literally beaten to death in a pugil fight. And other Marines who were, you know, not hazed, but I mean hazed in a way, I use the term, that honestly we needed to stop in the Marine Corps. And fortunately, a congressional investigation came in and did so. So I made it through boot camp, and you know, I really, at the time, even unbeknownst to myself, I had a sense of wanting to give back something to a country that had given so much to us.
Yeah.
And, you know, try to do my best at, you know, being a squared away Marine. And so, you know, I fortunately was an honor man for my platoon, but I was meritoriously promoted out of boot camp because I was a platoon guide, and got a meritorious promotion when I graduated, and then left there. But I'll tell you a very funny story. My parents drove down to pick me up from Marine Corps recruit depot at Parris Island, and we were driving back up to go home. I had about 20 days off on leave before I had to go to 29 Palms. And in that drive up, I remember we stopped at a restaurant in Virginia, and literally a guy walked out the door and spit on the ground in front of me.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's just
And,
insane.
you know, I mean, it was really weird because at the time, well, I entered the Marine Corps at 145 pounds, you know, dripping wet. left the boot camp at 155 pounds, but hard as a rock. And he was lucky that I didn't rip his face off when he did that.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, didn't care. I went ahead and went to 29 Palms. Was there for. And when I got to 29 Palms, I was supposed to go there because I got out of boot camp 2800 communication electronics. When I arrived at 29 Palms, there was a little bit of a delay in schooling, and one of the gunnies who was there said, you know, this guy got meritorious promotion, so I'm gonna bring you in my office and you work as a troop handler before we send you, you know, to your school. And I was like, okay. So I ended up being in a troop handler's office for like 3.5 months. But during that period of time, I got meritoriously promoted again to Lance Corporal. And this guy said to me, look, you know, why are you even here? I looked at your high school records and stuff. There's a place called the Naval Academy. I said, that was right down the street from me, man.
Wow, we're going to
hear
hear
these guys.
more about that right after the break. You've been listening to Putting the Pieces Back Together.
Sure.
Wow, Montel, I'm gonna tell you that I'm just blown away and speechless. You know, I want to go back just a little bit and say about your story about Virginia. I was so hoping you were going to say that you stopped in Statesville, North Carolina, on the way back. But then when I heard the rest of the story, I'm like, man, I'm glad that wasn't Statesville, North Carolina.
Yeah, there you go.
That's not the image we want here.
But you know, I gotta say, you know, I can't help but in my mind think, man, you could have become angry at that and held on to that.
Yeah,
but it's
Absolutely.
just knowing all the good that you've done. I had the opportunity to introduce you to my dad earlier today and was telling you, man, we watched your talk show for years in our home and just absolutely, you know, love all the work that you've done. And I've shared with so many people, you know, the last few interactions I've had with you.
Sure.
When you're on the show and people think, well, you know, it's on camera, man, I can feel your heart and passion for these veterans and that you have a love for what you do. It's not work. It's serving, and I can feel that now, and just so appreciate it. And I just want to say thank you.
No,
Man,
thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, that story was also reminding me of when we had Leon Imes on the program. Leon served in Vietnam, came back home, was told not to wear his uniform, and after coming back home, all he wanted to do was get a new car. He'd saved a bunch of money. This was 1969 when Leon got home. Went down to Charlotte, bought a brand new car at a dealership down there, was driving it back and came through a little town south of here and got pulled over and got arrested for car theft because the police officer said there's no way a black man could be driving a new car. And Leon held on to a lot of anger. So it's not only he came home with a country that didn't appreciate military service, but he came home to a part of the country that, you know, systemic racism was a part of it and everything. And it took him years to recover from that. He was so angry about that.
You know, it's really weird. I'm glad you brought this up because currently, and you know, I am as center politically as anybody in this country. I'm as independent. I don't give a damn about any party or anybody who claims to be a leader in America right now. If they're set in their ways, opinions about individual things. I look at every single topic separately, do the research myself, and make my own decisions.
That's the way everybody should
that's
be.
how it should be.
I wish more people would do that instead of listening to pundits and taking their political and
I always
moral
wanted to
advice.
be a pundit. That's I'm looking for. I'd like to be a pundit someday. I don't even know what that is. So, they didn't have that class at Appalachian State University.
I could call them a few other
Mike's
things,
muting.
but we're on
Mike's
the
muting.
air.
Here we go.
Welcome back to Putting the Pieces Back Together, presented by Purple Heart Homes. We are at it again, and Brad is now picking on my terms of pundits. And
Yes, yes. I told everybody during the break I wanted to be a pundit when I grew up.
It's better than being a putz.
Yeah, sure.
Or a schmuck.
Well, you know, Pundit was the name of my punk band in the 1980s. So.
You had a lot of bands in the 1980s.
I did. Notice you've never heard of any of them.
They kept kicking Brad out.
Yeah.
So he was just restarting with a new group.
Yeah, that's it.
Each time,
He put a new flyer out and get some more folks together.
Yeah, we went from punk to death metal, and then to new wave, and it just never really worked out. So.
All right, well let's get back to Montel here. Certainly, just enthralled in your story and hearing about your service, and you left off that basically you were now starting to migrate into the Naval Academy and how that came about.
Sure, and I left something out that I should have just talk about because as I've talked about my history in the military, I hardly ever, and you guys will be probably the first. I've really never discussed this aspect, but I was the second person in my family lineage to ever go in the military.
Oh, no kidding. Really?
And kind of forgot the first member of my family, who happened to be a cousin of mine, who was in Vietnam. And it's probably the reason why and what drives me so much to try to help our veterans. Excuse me. And what that is because the cousin and I had literally did 4 tours, 3 or 4 tours in Vietnam, and I can't remember if it was 3 or 4, but and was well rewarded, not decorated, for his ability to kill. I mean, he literally would come home and talk about, I killed 15. Go back, I killed 22. Go back, I killed 16. Come back. And I remember the last time I saw him, he was at Fort Meade, Maryland, and literally he left the base and took his issued rifle with him home in the downtown Baltimore, and just wigged out one night. Started blasting holes in the ceiling. Police were called. Of course, he jumped in the car, and literally police chased him for about 3 or 4 miles, and he turned around and drove his car right off a bridge, killed himself.
Oh my gosh.
And so as a family, we never talked about him. We he went away. He was one of those guys that, had one of those problems. But literally, that's what has probably driven me my whole life to support as much as I can veterans who I know have been in harm's way and served in times that, people, it's weird. The regular civilian just does not understand what we as veterans go through when we serve in harm's way, what truly is harm's way. Now, I graduated from the academy. I went on to become a special duty intelligence officer, and I probably served in every single hotspot that we had from the time I graduated until the time I got out. I landed on Grenada. I got literally heloed off of a ship and flown for about, almost a quarter of a mile under the helicopter until they pulled my butt up in there. And then I landed on a Grenada. I was part of the invasion force there. I got there from being part of a force that was in Jalisco Bay, which is between Nicaragua and El Salvador. I had served before that in the North Arabian Sea on the USS Kitty Hawk. We were part of the team that was involved in the first Libyan shootdown. Right after that, I ended up having close to, I did 3 different submarine missions, 100 days almost each. So I got about 300 days under the water as a special duty intelligence officer in the Lion's Den. And I can't, again, right now, even today, I'm still constrained by security constraints to even discuss what I did on active duty on the submarines. However, we were in the closest proximity. Let me put it this way. The missions that I did, had we moved right or left at the wrong time, we were ordered to pop up to the surface, send a satellite message off, and they would wake the President of the United States up until we said we were clear. So knowing that what we were doing could have, in just a snap of a finger, killed 114 people on the ship that quickly. I mean, we would have, if we had been caught doing some of the things that we were doing, it was definitely death.
Right,
Russians
and at
would
the
not have
time
won.
too. I mean, in the height of the nuclear tensions,
Yes.
it could have easily triggered something much more monumental than that as well, right?
No
Yeah.
ifs, ands, or buts. And,
Yeah.
that's why, and it's not an aspersion against one side or the other, but, when we look at the way we deal with, I have held the highest clearances this country has ever given. I had top secret SI. I have compartmented information that, I was involved with. And I cannot see how anyone can be frivolous with that information because that information will kill people. There are people who are out there right now. We think we're at peacetime, but some of these letters or some of these things that hit a desk and somebody gets to read it, tomorrow people will die.
Yeah.
And so I take my service very seriously. But thinking back on my cousin, that's probably part of the reason why deep down inside I literally try my best to do as much as I can for those of us who have served, who are in extremis, who need help.
Yeah.
And I continue to do that today.
Yeah, and I think that I served as a chaplain for 20 years, and served in special operations world, and saw a lot of my friends that had to do that very same thing. What you talked about, your family member, and one of the terms that has come up. It's not just PTS anymore, right? It's now this idea of moral injury,
Sure.
where you violate, because human beings, we weren't designed by God to kill other humans, right? And so when our job calls on us to do that, to go out and take up arms against another human, there's something, even though they're the enemy and they're doing bad things and they got to be stopped, it still feels wrong, right? And I've got friends of mine that close quarters stuff with looking at people in the eye
Sure.
when they took their lives, and it doesn't go away.
No.
It absolutely doesn't go away.
And it's not just that. You were talking about what you were doing on the nuclear submarine. Those stresses of knowing that you make a mistake, how many people could die, that causes a toll on you as well.
Yeah, it's crazy. You asked me, though, how I really kind of matriculated through this whole process. I was at 29 Palms, had a gunny out there, his name, I'll never forget him, Gunny Fraley, who looked me in the face and said, dude, I don't understand why you're here. I looked at your high school record, I see what you did. And in high school, man, I was like, watch this, was really crazy. I was the president of my class my junior year, senior year. I was a student who was elected to the Board of Education in my senior year, first student ever elected to the Board of Education in Maryland.
Didn't even know that was possible.
Yeah, and I was the parliamentarian for the Chesapeake Regional Association of Student Councils. I was like the vice president of the Maryland Association of Student Councils. And honestly, the only reason why I didn't go to college is my family had run out of money. I'm the youngest of four. My three siblings got ahead of me, and, they ate up all the money that the family had. So I figured, this GI Bill thing also is kind of cool. So if I go in, I may be able to go to college. And so this gunny looked at me and said, well, why are you here? You could be going to the Naval Academy. I was like, dude, Naval Academy was right down the street from where I grew up. We used to roll those dudes, you know what I mean? We used to go down and find these guys walking around in these white uniforms, beat the crap.
Are you saying West Point was recruiting you?
Well, just about. I didn't even know what West Point was. And so, I said, yeah, let's check it out. So, I got sent off to the Naval Academy Prep School, and at that time it had just been moved up to Newport, Rhode Island. I'll give you a little story. I entered and believe me, I'm only identifying this way not to cause a discussion about race, but when I entered the Naval Academy Prep School, I entered it with 40 other Marines. While there, only 21 of us graduated from the prep school. Only 13 of us got an appointment to the academy, and only 4 of those 13 graduated from the academy. Wow. So I had a 90% attrition rate, but I'm one of those guys that made it out. So it's cool. So I made it out, and honestly, what was crazy about that is that 12 weeks before I graduated, I went blind in my left eye. I originally had gone into the Naval Academy. Even my Naval Academy ring said, used to say inside of it, Marine Corps Air, because that's where I wanted to go back to. While I was at the Naval Academy, I literally went after getting my private pilot's license. I had 36 hours, and I needed 40, and I would have got my private pilot's license. However, 16 weeks before graduation, I went blind in my left eye, which now, looking back in hindsight, was my first bout with MS, but nobody believed that could possibly be it.
Yeah.
So I was put on a medical hold. I didn't even graduate. I graduated my class, walked across the stage, and got my diploma, but I wasn't commissioned. I was literally given the rank of midshipman in peacetime, which is in midshipman is a true rank that the Navy has. Only during wartime do we have that as a commissionable rank. I served as a midshipman for 6 months while I was on a medical hold, and they were trying to put me out of the service.
Sure.
And I literally fought that with Congress and Senators. I said, hold on a second. I put 4.5 years in here. You can put a uniform on me or I'm going to fight you in court. And I got multiple, I got Senator Sarbanes at the time, Barbara Mikulski at the time, who literally went down and petitioned for me, and I was able to get a commission. Now, I went blind in my left eye, but the vision came back.
Oh, it did come back, okay.
Not all the way.
Yeah.
It's about, at 2020 when I walked in, my vision's about 20/60 now, my left eye. And because of that, I couldn't go back in the Marine Corps because the Marine Corps can only take you if you have vision that's correctable to 20/20. Mine's not correctable. So therefore, I couldn't go back in the Marine Corps. They came to me and said, okay, we'll let you get a commission, but you got two choices, either Supply Corps or Special Duty Intelligence. I said, well, what's that Special Duty Intelligence stuff? And they said, well, it's kind of a linguist thing. We can't tell you about it. It's a lot of clearances. And I had studied Chinese at the Naval Academy. So I said, okay, that sounds good. So they
You sing too? You sing?
Yeah, I used to,
yeah.
I know, right?
What can't you do, Montel?
So they sent me off to the Defense Language Institute where I got a degree in Russian. And then I went back to the National Cryptologic School and got commissioned as a Crippy. Yeah.
Yeah, incredible.
Hey,
Yeah.
we're going to take a pause right there. You've been listening to Montel Williams on Putting the Pieces Back Together. We'll be back.
The cab drivers.
Oh,
Back
but
live.
that
Sorry.
probably
I'll be right
tripped him out.
Actually live.
Speaking Russian in New York.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we
Yeah.
on?
Yeah, we're still alive.
Okay. All right. No, it's so funny. When I started my talk show, I started it originally in L.A. My first year was in L.A., but then we moved the show from L.A. to New York at the end of the first year.
Now, you were still in the service when the show started, correct?
I was in the reserves when the show
didn't
started.
know that.
Absolutely. Yeah, and served in the reserves I went to reserve duty for about a year and a half. And then, honestly, my CO said, dude, you can't, because what would happen is my show had started at the same time. And so, literally, people found out that I was showing up, and my reserve station was in outside of Denver, Colorado. And there'd be like 150 people standing outside of my reserve unit. And again, it was a
Wanting to
special
see you.
wanting to see me. And this reserve unit
man.
was an ultra classified unit. So therefore, it started to piss people off.
So the opposite of what you want people standing in front of.
Correct. And see, before I got off active duty, I had started a program. Because again, I'm trying to jump through this quickly, but I got commissioned, went to the Defense Language Institute, went to the National Cryptologic School, got stationed at the National Security Agency. So while I was there, I was deployed from the National Security Agency on board all kinds of platforms, from aircraft carriers to destroyers to cruisers to submarines. And then right before I stopped my active duty tenure, I started a program because I ran a program at the National Security Agency called Classic Paladin. I can say that word. And that was where the home of all of our Hebrew, Farsi, and Arabic linguists were. And it'll shock you, but if you go back to like 1986, 87, all four branches of the service only had about 30 people who had those languages.
Really?
And all those guys were stationed at the exact same place, Classic Paladin, and they deployed from there to various places in the world. I ended up becoming the CO, the youngest CO of that group.
How long were you in totally as a naval officer?
It's really kind of weird. My time in service from induction to my discharge is 22 years.
Okay.
I have 18 and a half years active, and the rest of it was reserve.
Got it. Got it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, what an amazing career and story. And I oftentimes, share with veterans, so many, they get out, even after just 4 years, and they think it's just, that's the defining part
Just getting
of their
started,
life.
baby. Just getting
That's
started.
right. And so I look forward in the next segment to hearing more about that.
Sure.
Muting the mics.
Hey, you're listening to Putting the Pieces Back Together, presented by Purple Heart Homes. We are joined by Montel Williams of Military Makeover today. We're super excited that he is here. He's in Statesville with us, and we're revamping a home for a deserving veteran here. And it's been a crazy week. It's been a busy week, and we've been hearing about Montel's service to our country over 22 years, both in the Marine Corps and in the Navy. He's a Naval Academy graduate and served on submarines and went to Grenada. And he can sing and he can dance and has talk shows. And I'm not sure what to do having so much talent in the room.
Marines weren't all stupid.
Yeah,
I'm going to tell you, I can hardly contain my excitement over this interview and our time here with Montel. I'm Devin, I got to admit, I'm excited to have another Marine on the show.
And you heard it here. You heard it here. John said it. Something positive. There you go.
let's say this.
Can y'all
Most
send
of
a
his
clip of
time
that
was
to
spent as a
General Miller?
naval officer, so I guess you still define yourself as a Marine.
Once a
though.
Marine, always
I
a
know,
Marine,
I
brother.
get it. I
Yeah,
get it.
absolutely.
I get it. So
He
but-
graduated.
Yeah, that's right. He did. He graduated. Yeah. West Point came calling. He didn't know where West Point was.
I didn't
and
know
so
where
went
West
to-
Point was.
Yeah, so well, we're so thankful that you're here, and it's been an incredible show so far, and we've been talking about your time in service. And John, I think you had another question for him, and I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, you know, so often, and Brad, you know this to be true from the Reboot program and certainly with Veterans Treatment Court and all the different things that you're involved in, this idea that veterans, whether it's 4 years, 6 years, 8 years, 10 years, 20 years, they allow their military service to define them. And that's it. That's the whole of who they are as a person. And Montel, just knowing so much more about you and your career, that's not the case for you. And I think you're a great example and inspiration for others to realize how much more you can do and how you can build off of that service and how that career in the military or just the short time in the military can really prepare you and push you forward. And so would you share some more about your show, particularly your talk show, as you made that transition into some of the other things and now the support you're doing for vets?
Crazy. Like before the break, I was telling you, like I ran this organization at the National Security Institute, was then called Classic Paladin, where the home of all of these linguists. Well, here's the problem. When we had that short and that small a number of linguists, these guys were deployed most of the time from Fort Meade around the world. We had troops that were in Athens, Greece. We had them in Rhoda, Spain. We even had them in then Bahrain. And I would deploy them, and they would go to sea, listen to this, for 180 days, because congressionally we could not serve for more than 180 days deployed before you could come home. So they would go for 180 days, come home for 3, and I'd send their butts back out to sea for another 180 days.
Right, yeah.
So, and you think about this, these are 22, 23-year-old kids who been married to, their 16-year-old sweetheart, got 4 or 5 kids sitting at home. So while these guys are out at sea, their wives and kids were kind of running amok in some places. And we were at Fort Meade, and at that time, they allowed a lot of soldiers to, live off base and come back on base. And we started finding out that, a lot of our guys who were, deployed in Northern Arabian Sea and all over in the Mediterranean, not getting Dear John letters, but getting letters from their wives that were, come on now, the washing machine broke, or, somebody else sends them a letter, so-and-so's cheating, and So my guys would not focus on what they had to do. So I literally went to my CO and I said, I think we ought to bring all these people on base. So we brought all the families back on base, made them live in base quarters, and then we kind of helped them, navigate the ombudsman's organization so they could get some help. And, I started speaking to the families of the soldiers that work for me, and one of my friends from the academy heard about that and said, would you mind coming out and participating in an event that I'm putting on at Kansas State University? This was back in January of '88. And he's putting on this event where he said, look, I'm a recruiter, but I don't want you doing any recruiting. I just want you to kind of talk about leadership and what you do. I said, okay, cool, I did that. And that was at Kansas State University. And I went out and literally spoke to a group. This is a big convention. It was called the Big 8 Black Student Union Conference. So there was like all the Big 8 schools had all their Black Student Union organizations participating. and I probably spoke 2 times before audiences of 3,000 and 4,000 strong, and the reception was such that while I was there, there were several teachers in the room from local schools and colleges, and they said, "Man, would you like come over and speak at my school?" And I was like, I'm only going to here for another 3 days. Well, we'll work it out. We'll make it happen. So I said, okay, all right. So I went over and I spoke at all these schools, and it blew up like wildfire. And people appreciated what I had to say. And back then, I was speaking about what I call the 3 R's. Instead of reading, writing, arithmetic, it was restraint, responsibility, respect. And it resonated. And let's go back and remember, this is 1988, before Nancy Reagan had even said, let's say no.
Yeah, right.
So I was speaking to kids around the country about, not dropping out, drugging out, and sexing out, but staying in school, getting a good education, because an education is the great equalizer. And I really firmly believe that. I mean, I'm a kid from, one of the biggest ghettos this country has. It's called Cherry Hill, Baltimore. And, honestly, I only had one member of my family, my sister, who... he was the brain of the family, because the homegirl's got like 5 degrees, and that girl can't figure out, how to stop going to school. However, she got a degree in education, a degree in French, a degree in, she ended up getting a master's degree, and then got her law degree. So, it was like, damn, how many degrees are you going to get? So, I literally feel that that's really the road and example for anybody to get out and lift themselves up is education. So I started speaking about that across the country, and it literally became this impromptu kind of a nonprofit organization. By the time I woke up, I had spoken in probably 30 different schools, 40 schools across the country, and then decided. Then I was
on active duty.
I was on active duty at the time. I was stationed at the National Security Agency and was doing this on my own leave time. As a matter of fact, I just shifted from the National Security Agency to Sinclair Fleet. I became the youngest officer to be the cryptological officer in charge for Sublant, which is Submarine Forces Atlantic. And I had gone to see my boss, and I said, look, if I do this on my leave time, do you mind? He said, I don't care what you do. Go ahead, as long as you don't talk about what you're doing. I said, go ahead. I said, cool. So I would go in before all these student bodies across the country from these requests. And then I happened to be in Denver, Colorado, speaking at a school, and some butthead news person, wrote for a newspaper, Navy sends out Navy spy to recruit young black children to go to the military. Like, what? I'm speaking, it doesn't matter what audience I was speaking to. I couldn't figure it out. But now my cover's blown. And my boss was like, dude, we can't do this. You cannot do this way. We can't have, because now they're starting to ask questions about what he really does. And I'm trying to, avoid the questions and not answer them. So it was getting kind of crazy. So I said, you got a choice, either help kids or
be in the Navy.
Or be in the Navy.
Yeah,
right.
right.
Dude, I'm loving the Navy, but, I'm loving helping kids.
I can't help but think about my friend Wes Moore, Governor Moore up in Maryland. And I don't know how much you know about him, but he's from Baltimore, and he wrote a book called The Other Wes Moore. And, there's these two young black kids from Baltimore, and in the process, one goes on to become an Army officer, Rhodes Scholar, and now governor of Maryland, and then the other ends up in prison. And it's different paths and different choices, and just your words of restraint, responsibility, and respect, and education being the great equalizer, and all these things, and that's what I hear from Wes, and it's like, man, what we can do with the right mentors, the right opportunities, and the right support, it's just amazing. And
it is amazing, my friend, but I got to tell you something. I am so jaded these days, because that's not the message that America wants to hear. And that's not the message that American media wants to get out. It used to be, when I first started in the media, it was like, the moniker, and you've heard it before. If it bleeds, it leads. So that's the reason why almost every news station starts with some sort of bloody story.
Yeah, the homicide.
They have to show homicides, war, death, and destruction.
Right.
Yeah.
And then now that's the whole hour. That's all you get is who killed who shot John.
Absolutely.
And I've tried in the last couple of years, I, honestly, take a look at the show that we do, and I know we got to take a break, but look at the show that we're doing, and the show that you guys have contributed with, Military Makeover. We're taking deserving veterans and giving them a forever home.
Yep.
We're showing them that thank you for your service isn't enough.
Yeah,
Changing
we're gonna
lives.
we're going to hear more about that after we take this break.
Absolutely.
You're listening to Putting the Pieces Back Together.
Brad, let's not forget about that other thing.
Just talk about it now.
Well, we'd lead into talking about military makeover.
Yeah, so Montel, say some other things that, what are some other things that you're working on aside from the TV show? You have other charities that you actually, and other causes that you're promoting and supporting.
Well, let me start with this. First off, almost everything I've done in my last 17, 18 years of life, anything that I can figure out that will help other people, I try to make sure that we can blow that up and people hear about it. Now, when it comes to military makeover, again, and I'm not knocking the channel that we're on. I'm loving the fact that I'm on Lifetime. But this is a story that's big enough to be on ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, not just Lifetime. This is something that America needs to stop. But for the grace of God, we are not in a conflict today. And I know I'm banging the table, but we are seconds away from putting our cherished loved ones back on the battlefield.
Yep.
Seconds.
We
Seconds. And somebody else may make us do that faster than we want. Okay? And how dare we not respect those that stop your child from having to go out and fight?
Yep.
Remember, less than 1% of the American population ever puts a uniform on their back. 1% protects the 360 million people who live in this country. Less than 1%, I'm sorry, because it's really only like 1.5 million a year. Come on now. And how dare we not respect those that are getting ready to go and put their lives on the line again? And it's not a color thing. It's not a social economic thing. It's a fact that, damn it, your child or you don't have to put that uniform on because that other guy is the one that's going to put it on his back and he's going off to protect you because he believes in you.
I think, those of us that have served, it's like when you make that decision to go and serve, whatever it is, it's like, just personally, I was just like, well, if I don't do it, who else will?
Yes.
Right. I mean, that's literally the way I look at it.
What's the old saying? If not you, who?
Yeah. Yeah. So, that's well said.
Absolutely.
That's a good clip right there.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah,
that needs to be carved out.
Man, I was sitting there thinking about sponsoring his campaign for president.
I'd vote for you right now, sir.
Well,
That's the leadership we need. Somebody's willing to put it aside and do the right thing.
there was, if you look at my high school yearbook, it said I would be president of the United States by 1994. Okay? And as I look at my life right now and I think, would I want to serve that way? I would love to. However, America can't handle me, brother. They can't. They can't.
Well, I'm glad WSI. Welcome back to Putting the Pieces Back Together. And if you have missed any part of the show, make sure you go back and check us out wherever you get your social media.
Facebook, YouTube, X, LinkedIn, WSICnews.com.
And be sure this is, I got to say, out of all the shows that we've done, and without hesitation, my favorite. My absolute favorite. Montel, thank you.
Yeah, we're really
Thank
great.
you.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'll say that above the 37th Commandant Marine Corps. I love General Neller, great guy. He knife-handed me through the Zoom screen. It kind of scared me.
You kind of deserved it.
And then when he started reading the statutes and the paragraphs and threatening to put me under the
I think he
jail
even
at
threatened
Guantanamo.
a 15-6 investigation. That was pretty rough.
That was kind of scary. This has been fun.
I want to be honest. He actually said doing anything with you was beneath him. He would have handed that off to
dang.
junior
He did say
officers.
that. Yeah, but hey, I would say this: when you're a 4-star general, everything is beneath you.
That's true.
Literally everything.
I would agree with that.
There's nothing above you except for one guy in the White House.
Yeah.
But hey, Montel, thank you again. So Montel Williams is with us. Their whole company, production company with Military Makeovers in town. We are in partnership with us here at Purple Heart Homes, and our community has come together around a deserving veteran. And would you tell us how you got involved with the show? It airs on Lifetime, but how did you get involved with the show, and what does it mean to you?
Yeah, I know we're going to run out of time here quickly, so let me just, I'll speak real fast and hope those, in the Army can keep up. No, only playing. No, it's really kind of funny. You probably didn't know that, and I'll guarantee you that your listeners don't know. 5 years ago, I had a severe hemorrhagic stroke.
Mm.
Literally almost killed me.
Oh, wow.
And at the same time that happened, Army Early, and you know Army Early, who's the guy who's the gunny that you've seen in with a full metal jacket. He was the original host of Military Makeover, and unfortunately, Gunny was passing away and had to leave his post in Military Makeover. And he asked, I think Mark, who is the Alfieri, who's the CEO or the president and CEO of Brandstar, said, well, who do you think that we should reach out to replace you? And he said, Montel Williams.
Mm.
He said that while I was laying on a gurney in New York Presbyterian. I spent almost 30 days in the hospital. Nobody really knows that. The stroke was so severe that the first 5 days, I didn't even know where I was. And my wife, though, I'll tell you, helped pull me through that thing. Kudos out to her, and I have to say that, because she slept in a bed beside me for 30 days in the hospital every day. Wow. First 5 days, I just remember, only thing I remember was that I woke up to I love you, and I went to sleep to I love you. Mm-hmm. That was it. And that's what kept me going. And my manager called and said, do you think you might be able to do this when you recover? Not if you recover, but when you recover. And I said, matter of fact, yeah, I'd love to do this. Mm-hmm. Wow. So it was literally knowing that I was going to become the host of the show that helped me recover faster. Mm-hmm. And a couple of other things. I've been working on initiatives for the last 12 years that deal with traumatic brain injury, because I've been trying to help our troops and soldiers with that. So I literally took a medical device all the way through the process of being brought into a public company and then actually gaining FDA approval. That medical device is called a PONS device, portable neuromodulation device, that right now has FDA approval in Canada, Australia, United States. Canada, it's for traumatic brain injury and other neurological diseases from MS to Parkinson's to stroke. Australia, stroke, MS. Here in the United States, MS. That's a device that I will now, unfortunately, I don't support that company anymore because of some things that went on down. There was a hostile takeover and some other things that happened, but I'm working on technology right now in the EU that I'm hopefully will get into the hands of our veterans as quickly as I possibly can. That's part of the reason why I'm sitting here with you today. I use that device every single day, and that's what's helped me recover from my stroke and helps me keep me moving the way I am with my MS. So that's one thing I've been working on. And as soon as Mark said, would you like to host this show? I was like, yeah, come on, man, let's do something and blow this up. And I've really literally been trying my best for the last now 2 years to get this program not uplifted, but, because Lifetime is a great channel to be carrying us, and it's on a lot of the cable stations around the country, but it's not on all of them. Mm-hmm. And we need to have a broader distribution. Mm-hmm. And, your listeners can help force that to happen because, damn it, why can't we just acknowledge like the Bowman family? Mm-hmm. Right. These are people who have given so much for us. Why, as a nation, is this something that our media turns against? I do not get it. I don't understand it. Examples like that, showing the resilience, coming back from a major injury, and showing that you can still be a contributing member to our society. We all need to know this. Mm-hmm. So, I'm going to continue working with Military Makeovers for as long as I can. But I'm also working on lots of other projects, one of which I'm really happy to be here because I think through your listenership, we can get the word out. Contrary to popular belief, and contrary to what, and I'm not trying to say it's nefarious, but I'm just going to say that, and forgive me, you can beat me because I'll leave out the second word, the bull, you know what I'm talking about, the bull blank. We've been told that, look, the only way that you can really cure or function with PTSD is through as many pharmaceuticals that we can shove down your throat. Amen. And, continued therapy at a VA hospital for the next 40 years of your life. Mm-hmm. Bull! Blank. I'm telling you, 12 years, guys, you have to really, let's think about this. 12 years ago, I was introduced to a protocol that's called RTM, Reconsolidation of Traumatic Memories. This protocol back then, a doctor walked into my office and said, Montel, I heard what you did with this PONS thing, and I'm telling you, I need your help right now because I've got this protocol that I know is a cure for, or probably the most efficacious treatment for PTSD. That was 12 years ago. And I looked the doctor in the face and I said, brother, I read it, I hear it, I see it. Yes, I think it's right, but you need to have all of the stuff that keeps the gangsters from invalidating what you have. You got to have the double-blind studies. You have to have all the crap that this Western, behemoth of a bureaucracy wants to see before they will let this thing be actually put in place for people who can use it. So he said, okay, went away. 8 years later, he came back to me and said, look, dude, I did it. I got you your double-blind studies. I got you all the things that check the block to make this a efficacious treatment, and it needs to be deployed. And I got involved almost 3.5 years ago, and I have not stopped since. This protocol, right now, is listed by the governing body that actually validates psychological protocols in the world. It's something called the ISTSS. This organization has declared this to be the most efficacious treatment for PTSD that exists in the world. Not just combat PTSD, but all forms of PTSD, from childhood trauma to sexual abuse to spousal abuse. You name the trauma. Watch this. It completely ameliorates all symptoms in 5 to 10 hours, no medication.
Wow.
And can be administered virtually. Can be taught to therapists on how to administer it virtually. This thing has been ready for prime time for the last 3.5 years. Remember, you've heard it. 22 veterans a day take their lives.
Yes, we
A
have.
day.
Yeah. It's actually more.
It's more.
Yeah.
And this has been happening for the last 15 years
Yeah.
since this protocol has been in existence. Think of the number of lives we could have saved in the last 5 years if they had administered it when they were proven to be an efficacious medication, an efficacious treatment protocol. But you would be shocked. I was spoken to by one of the top neurologists in this country, a doctor who told me that, Montel, you need to understand that anything transformative in medicine is always met with the most vehement and adamant resistance.
Yeah.
And he ain't lying.
Yeah.
Because there are some entrenched bureaucrats who know that their butts and their jobs are on the line if we put this in place, because guess what? They've turned PTSD into a cottage industry. There's probably $3 billion to $4 billion that people have made off the suffering of others.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sorry, you might lose your job, but I don't really give a damn, because I say stop the suffering.
Yeah.
And there's still money to be made. I mean, the bottom line is that this protocol in 10 hours would probably cost, at the most, $2,500 a head, and another $5,000 to treat, or $3,000 to treat, or to train the therapist to employ it. Once that's done, now it's $2,500, and we've got you cured.
Where can people find out about this, Montel?
You can go up online right now at R&R, which is research and research and recognition project.org, or go up on RTM. The information is out there right now, and people could be treated. What's so crazy is that we just completed, or we're in the process of completing, its second double-blind study at Walter Reed, its second double-blind study at King's College. The state of New York has already deployed this protocol for first responders from 9/11. The state of New Mexico has already employed this protocol. It's being, guess what? This is what's crazy. This is something that's an American treatment protocol developed here in the United States that is right now being deployed in the Ukraine and in Poland. We are treating soldiers over there, and we're not treating soldiers here.
Amazing.
Now, how asinine is that? It's amazing, but it's asinine.
Right.
This should be deployed here, right now. And I'm going to do everything I possibly can to get it done.
I feel the Marine knife hand coming out to go take it to some people.
Absolutely.
One thing that Montel does have is passion.
You cannot deny
So
that.
I'm not denying
I
that.
love it. I love
Yeah.
it. And I just want to say for our listeners, I have seen and felt that passion on
Absolutely.
every military makeover project that we've done with you guys. And
sir.
what
Couldn't
a
thank you
great time out in Arlington, Texas, with Carlos and his family.
Oh, my
And,
goodness. That was great. Unbelievable.
just amazing, and we're thankful you're here with us in Statesville, North Carolina. For
Got to get
the
it. He's got to
Bowman
get him
family.
a cheer wine. We got cheer wines in the
Cheer
green
wine
room.
and a moon pie.
Yeah,
Hey,
got
but,
cheer
but
wines.
let's remember, guys, shout out now, military. It is Military Makeover, but it's because of you guys. PurpleHeartHomesUSA.org, right?
That's right.
People need to remember, give, dig deep. A living is made by what you get. A life is made by what you give. Start giving.
Amen.
That's
Thank
it.
you, Montel.
Yes, sir.